The twins were forced to eat 100 eggs by their cruel stepmother. It all happened while their millionaire father was away. But that day, he came back without warning and caught the horror happening inside his own house. What he did next was shocking. William Blackwood was one of the most powerful men in Manhattan, a financial titan whose name adorned buildings across the New York skyline. Since his wife's passing during childbirth 12 years ago, he had raised his twin daughters alone, with the steadfast help of Martha Reynolds, a housekeeper who had become like family. The Blackwood penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming midtown skyscraper, offering panoramic views of Central Park. Despite the opulence surrounding them, Emma and Olivia Blackwood often found themselves gazing out at the city lights, wondering when their father might come home. "Do you think he'll remember this time?" Emma asked, adjusting the ribbon in her hair as they prepared for their birthday celebration. Olivia shrugged, her eyes reflecting the same mixture of hope and resignation. "Martha says he promised." The twins had grown accustomed to their father's absences, board meetings, international flights, late-night negotiations. William's empire demanded constant attention, an insatiable beast that devoured family dinners and weekend outings. But today was different. Today was their 12th birthday, and William had made a solemn vow. "This time, I'll be there," he had promised, looking them both in the eyes as he presented their early gifts, identical silver lockets containing a family photo from happier times. The dining room had been transformed under Martha's direction. Balloons floated near the ceiling, and a magnificent cake stood as the centerpiece. The twins wore matching blue dresses, chosen specially for the occasion. When the elevator chimed at exactly 6 o'clock, their faces lit up. William entered carrying beautifully wrapped packages, his smile genuine but tired. "My girls," he said, embracing them both. "Happy birthday." For one perfect evening, William Blackwood was just a father, playing board games, listening to his daughters' stories, and watching them blow out 12 candles with wishes he couldn't hear. Later that night, as William tucked them into bed, he made another promise. "Things are going to change. I'm going to be home more." The twins exchanged glances, afraid to believe but wanting desperately to hope. Neither of them could have known that this promise marked the beginning of their family's greatest nightmare. 2 weeks later, Victoria Blackwood, William's sister and a fixture in New York high society, swept into their lives with a purpose. The elegant socialite had always been a distant figure to the twins, appearing at holidays with expensive gifts and perfunctory affection. "Will, you can't keep going like this," she declared over lunch at an exclusive restaurant. "The girls need a feminine influence. You need companionship." William started to protest, but Victoria was already waving someone over. "There's someone I'd like you to meet." Eleanor Sinclair approached their table with graceful confidence. As the curator for one of Manhattan's most prestigious art galleries, she possessed an ethereal beauty and cultured air that immediately captured William's attention. "Your sister has told me so much about you and your daughters," Eleanor said, her voice soft yet assured as she joined them. Victoria smiled triumphantly. "Eleanor just helped me acquire the most exquisite Monet for my collection. Her taste is impeccable." What began as a chance introduction quickly evolved. Within a month, Eleanor became a regular presence in the Blackwood penthouse. She arrived bearing thoughtful gifts, art books for the girls, rare vintages for William. Her knowledge of the financial world impressed him. Her understanding of his demanding schedule seemed compassionate. "She gets it, Martha," William confided to his housekeeper one evening after Eleanor had departed. "She understands what it means to build something that lasts." Martha nodded politely, but something in Eleanor's perfectly composed demeanor troubled her. The way her smile never quite reached her eyes when William turned away. The slight chill in her voice when addressing the staff. The calculating gaze that swept across the penthouse, lingering on safes and file cabinets. The twins noticed too. When Eleanor first visited, she had been warm and engaging, complimenting their school achievements and asking about their interests. But as her relationship with their father deepened, subtle changes emerged. "Let me help you with your posture, dear," she would say to Olivia, pressing painfully on the girl's shoulders when William wasn't looking. "A young lady should speak only when spoken to," she whispered to Emma after interrupting her story at dinner. The elegant clothes she began bringing. For them, such darling little uniforms for my new daughters felt more like costumes in a play where they hadn't been given the script. The once warm penthouse grew cold with tension. The twins whispered together in their room at night, afraid to voice their concerns to their increasingly distracted father. Martha watched, worried, as William fell deeper under Eleanor's spell, blind to the shadow falling across his home and daughters. The Blackwood penthouse was unusually quiet that Saturday afternoon. William had promised to join them for lunch, but called at the last minute. An emergency board meeting couldn't wait. Eleanor offered to stay with the girls, assuring him everything would be fine. "We'll have a lovely ladies' lunch," she said into the phone, her voice honeyed and reassuring. The moment the call ended, her expression hardened. In the kitchen, Martha prepared a simple meal: cucumber sandwiches, fruit salad, and deviled eggs. When she announced lunch was ready, Eleanor inspected the table with a critical eye. "The girls and I will dine properly in the formal dining room," she declared. "Bring everything there." Emma and Olivia exchanged nervous glances as they took their seats. Eleanor watched them with hawkish intensity as Martha served the first course. "I don't like eggs," Olivia said quietly, pushing her plate away. Eleanor's smile froze. "What did you say?" "I don't want to eat eggs. They make me feel sick." The dining room temperature seemed to drop. Eleanor placed her napkin deliberately on the table. "You'll eat what you're served in this house." "Both of you," Emma spoke up. "Dad lets us choose what we—" "Your father isn't here," Eleanor snapped. "And it's precisely this kind of indulgence that has made you both so undisciplined." She rose from her chair and disappeared into the kitchen, returning with a large serving bowl filled with deviled eggs. "Since you need a lesson in obedience, you'll both eat these. Every last one." "But there must be—" Emma began counting. 100, Eleanor said, her voice eerily calm. 100 eggs to teach you proper respect." Martha stepped forward. "Miss Sinclair, the girls don't have to—" "One more word and you'll be looking for new employment," Eleanor hissed without taking her eyes off the twins. "Now eat." Tears streamed down Olivia's face as she forced down the first egg. Emma tried to be brave, but after the fourth egg, she began coughing and gagging. "Faster," Eleanor demanded, standing over them. 100 eggs to learn obedience." The girls sobbed, their plates smeared with yellow, their bodies trembling. Martha watched helplessly, torn between intervening and protecting her position, the only thing allowing her to shield the girls when she could. That's when they heard it, the unmistakable sound of the private elevator arriving. The doors slid open, and William Blackwood stepped into a scene from a nightmare. His daughters huddled at the table, faces streaked with tears, surrounded by discarded eggshells and half-eaten deviled eggs. Martha stood frozen against the wall, and Eleanor, composed just seconds before, struggled to regain her perfect mask. "Will, you're back early," she said, her voice suddenly gentle. "I was just teaching the girls about finishing what's on their plates. So much waste these days." "Dad!" Emma cried, running to him. Olivia followed, still coughing. William's face darkened as he took in the scene. "What's happening here?" "Just a small discipline issue," Eleanor said smoothly. "Children need boundaries, Will. You've been too soft." "Get out," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Darling, you're overreacting. This is normal parenting. Not in my home. Not with my daughters." His hands were shaking. "Martha, take the girls upstairs." After Martha ushered the twins away, William and Eleanor had a heated conversation behind closed doors. The house staff exchanged knowing glances when Eleanor left in tears, William's face stony as the elevator doors closed behind her. That evening, as William comforted his daughters, his phone rang incessantly with calls from Eleanor, and surprisingly, from Victoria. "You need to forgive her," his sister insisted when he finally answered. "Everyone makes mistakes. The girls are simply not used to proper discipline." Something in Victoria's tone struck him as wrong. The insistence, the dismissal of what he'd witnessed. Had his sister known about Eleanor's true nature all along? The next morning, James Peterson, William's longtime attorney and friend, requested an urgent meeting. "There's something you need to see," James said gravely, sliding a folder across William's desk at Blackwood Financial Headquarters. Inside were surveillance photos, Eleanor and Victoria entering the offices of Robert Chambers, CEO of Chambers Global, William's fiercest corporate rival. Additional images showed late-night meetings, document exchanges, and handshakes with members of William's own board. "There's more," James continued, his expression grim. "They've been consulting with a psychiatrist who specializes in competency evaluations, and your sister has made discreet inquiries about conservatorship laws." The revelation hit William like physical blow. The relationship, the chance introduction, all carefully orchestrated. Eleanor was never interested in him or his daughters. She was the key to a hostile takeover, designed to declare him mentally unfit and seize control of everything he'd built. "How long?" William asked, his voice hoarse. "The earliest meeting we found was 3 months before Victoria introduced you. This was planned from the start, Will." William stared out the window at the Manhattan skyline, his empire stretching before him. The betrayal by his own sister cut deeper than any business rivalry ever could. "They've already approached 3 board members," James continued. "They're building a case that your judgment is compromised, that you've been making erratic decisions. If they succeed in having you declared incompetent, they get everything," William finished. "The company, the assets, and guardianship of the girls," James added quietly. William's blood ran cold. The eggs, the cruelty, it hadn't been a simple disciplinary overreach. It was the beginning of a campaign to isolate his daughters, to make them afraid, compliant, to prepare them for a future where their father was removed from the picture. "What do they want?" William asked, though he already knew the answer. "According to my source, Chambers wants Blackwood Financial folded into his conglomerate. Victoria wants the board position you denied her 5 years ago. And Eleanor, she's been promised a substantial settlement and ongoing percentage if they succeed." William's mind raced. He needed to protect his daughters, his company, his legacy, but direct confrontation would only alert them, force them to accelerate their plans. "They think they have all the pieces in place," he said finally, a dangerous calm settling over him. "But they've made one critical mistake." "What's that?" James asked. William's eyes hardened. "They forgot who they're dealing with. I didn't build this empire by being predictable." He stood, decision made. "James, I need surveillance equipment, the most discreet you can find, and I need your absolute discretion about what happens next." William Blackwood's penthouse underwent a subtle transformation overnight. Tiny cameras appeared in light fixtures, smoke detectors and bookshelves. Microphones nestled in vases and behind picture frames. The security team installed everything with military precision, leaving no trace of their work. "The whole place is covered," James confirmed, as they reviewed the system in William's private study. "Every room except the girls' bedrooms and bathrooms." "And Martha knows?" William asked, watching multiple feeds on a hidden monitor. "She does. She's furious about what happened, Will. Said she tried to intervene but was threatened." William's jaw tightened. "I've been blind, James. Too wrapped up in business to see what was happening in my own home." The doorbell rang on one of the monitors. Victoria had arrived, ostensibly for afternoon tea. William composed himself, prepared to play a role in a dangerous game. "Will, darling," Victoria embraced him with practiced affection. "You've been avoiding my calls. I've been so worried." "Just busy with work," he replied carefully. "The Peterson acquisition is complex." Victoria's eyes flickered with interest. "The Peterson deal?" "I thought the board tabled that until next quarter." William offered a calculated shrug. "We found a way to make it work sooner." It was bait, and Victoria took it immediately. Within minutes of William leaving for a conference call, she was on her phone in the guest bathroom. "He's moving on Peterson now," she whispered urgently. "Yes, ahead of schedule." "No, I don't have details yet." William watched the feed from his study, his suspicions confirmed. The Peterson deal was entirely fictional, a piece of misinformation designed to test Victoria's loyalty. For the next 2 weeks, William maintained a deliberate facade. To the outside world, he appeared increasingly distracted and disorganized. He missed meetings, wore mismatched clothes, and spoke in disjointed sentences when Victoria or board members were present. At the same time, he fed a steady stream of false information about company strategies and personal investments. At home, he welcomed Eleanor back with apparent forgiveness, accepting her tearful apologies and promises to do better with the girls. "They just need structure, Will," she insisted. "I was overzealous, but my heart was in the right place." William nodded, playing the part of a man too in love to see clearly. I understand. We'll find a balance. Behind this facade, he worked tirelessly with James and a small circle of trusted executives. They created a shadow operation, dummy accounts, decoy investments, and fake corporate documents, each piece designed to be discovered by prying eyes. Martha became his eyes and ears when he couldn't be present. The housekeeper observed Eleanor's movements through the apartment, noting her interest in William's home office and private safe. She tries the combination when she thinks no one's watching, Martha reported. And she's been asking the girls strange questions about your behavior. Most disturbing were the recordings of Eleanor with the twins when William was absent. Her voice would transform from melodic to menacing in an instant. Your father has been acting strangely, hasn't he? She would press. Forgetting things? Seeming confused. When the girls defended him, the punishment was swift. Privileges revoked, isolation in their rooms. Psychological games designed to break their spirits. We need to prepare you, Eleanor told them during one chilling conversation. Your father isn't well. Soon he might need to go somewhere special to get help. When that happens, I'll be taking care of you. The evidence mounted day by day. Victoria and Eleanor in the library at night, discussing board votes and asset allocations. Eleanor photographing private documents. Victoria meeting secretly with Robert Chambers to coordinate their strategy. The most damning revelation came when James discovered that Victoria had already filed preliminary paperwork for an emergency competency hearing. A psychiatrist, Dr. Lawrence Fisher, a college friend of Chambers, had prepared a professional opinion despite never having met William. They're moving faster than we anticipated, James warned. The hearing is scheduled for next Friday. William nodded grimly. Then we accelerate our plan too. He called the twins into his study, making sure Eleanor was occupied with her weekly art gallery meeting. I need your help, he told them, his voice serious but gentle. And I need you to be very brave. Emma and Olivia listened wide-eyed as their father explained a simplified version of the situation. He showed them the tiny recording devices disguised as jewelry, a hairpin for Emma, a bracelet charm for Olivia. Eleanor and Aunt Victoria may try to take you to meet someone, a doctor, William explained. They'll want you to say things about me. That I'm confused, forgetful, or scary. But that's not true, Olivia protested. I know, sweetheart. And that's why we need evidence of what they're really doing. The girls nodded solemnly, accepting their roles in the family's defense. The next day, exactly as William predicted, Eleanor suggested the twins join her for ice cream and a quick errand. The errand, of course, was an appointment with Dr. Fisher in his Manhattan office. The recording devices captured every moment, the leading questions, the pressure to agree that their father was changing, the subtle threats when they resisted. Remember our talk about cooperation? Eleanor whispered when the doctor stepped out. If you don't help us help your father, you might not see him for a very long time. The twins maintained remarkable composure, offering non-committal responses while gathering exactly the evidence William needed. Meanwhile, the financial trap William had set began closing around his adversaries. Victoria and Chambers, thinking they were tracking William's fictional Peterson acquisition, diverted significant resources to counter it. When the deal was revealed as non-existent, Chambers' stock took an immediate hit. Board members who had aligned with Victoria found themselves implicated in leaked memos discussing the plot against William. 3 resigned overnight, unwilling to face the legal consequences of their involvement. At home, the surveillance cameras recorded their most valuable evidence yet. Eleanor methodically searching William's office, testing his safe and, most damning of all, adding a clear liquid to his evening scotch. Got you, William whispered, watching from his secure room as laboratory results confirmed the presence of a powerful sedative in the sampled liquor. The final piece fell into place when Martha overheard Victoria on the phone with Judge Sandra Williams, an old friend from her charity circuit, discussing the sad but necessary competency hearing. We have enough, James announced after reviewing all the evidence. More than enough. William nodded, his expression resolute. Time to spring the trap. The morning of the competency hearing dawned with an eerie calm over Manhattan. William adjusted his tie in the mirror, noting the calculated imperfections in his appearance, slightly askew collar, mismatched socks. a subtle tremor in his hands enhanced by careful sleep deprivation. "You look appropriately unhinged," James commented, reviewing their final preparations. "Remember, let them think they're winning until the very end. And the girls?" William asked, his primary concern always returning to his daughters. "Martha will bring them only for the final phase. They'll wait with my assistant until we signal." The Blackwood corporate jet had been fueled and prepped, with a filed flight plan to Switzerland, another piece of misinformation designed to support Victoria's narrative that William was planning to flee with company assets. At Blackwood Financial Headquarters, the board had convened an emergency session. Victoria sat at the head of the table, William's seat, with Eleanor beside her and Robert Chambers observing from the corner with barely concealed triumph. "My brother's condition has deteriorated rapidly," Victoria announced with practiced concern. "The medical evaluation supports what many of us have observed. William is experiencing significant cognitive decline and emotional instability." Murmurs rippled through the board members. Half were loyal to William. The others had been swayed by Victoria's campaign of whispers and Chambers' promises of lucrative positions in the new corporate structure. "This is difficult for all of us," Victoria continued, "but we must act decisively to protect the company and William himself." The temporary resolution passed by a narrow margin. William would be suspended from operational control pending the court's decision. Victoria would serve as interim CEO with emergency powers, effective immediately. When William arrived at the courthouse, reporters gathered on the steps, alerted by strategic leaks from Victoria's team. He stumbled slightly, a calculated move, providing the perfect photo opportunity to support tomorrow's planned headline, "Blackwood Empire Crumbles as Founder's Health Fails." Inside, Judge Sandra Williams presided over the closed hearing with a barely concealed bias. She and Victoria had served together on the Metropolitan Museum Board for years, a connection deliberately omitted from the official record. These proceedings are to determine whether Mr. William Blackwood requires appointment of a conservator due to diminished capacity. Judge Williams began. Victoria's attorney presented their case first. Documentation of erratic business decisions, testimony from compromised board members, and Dr. Fisher's professional assessment based on the manipulated sessions with the twins. William sat silently, appearing increasingly disoriented as the hearing progressed. He would occasionally scribble nonsensical notes or mutter to himself, all part of the performance James had orchestrated. Eleanor took the stand with tears in her eyes, describing William's frightening mood swings and growing paranoia. She recounted fictional episodes of him wandering the apartment at night, forgetting basic details, and becoming irrationally angry. "I've stayed only because of my love for him and concern for the girls," she testified, her performance worthy of Broadway. "They need protection from his increasingly unpredictable behavior." Judge Williams nodded sympathetically. "And how have the children been affected?" "They're terrified," Eleanor said softly. "They've witnessed his decline and don't understand what's happening. That's why they've become withdrawn, rebellious." By midday, the courtroom atmosphere suggested the outcome was a foregone conclusion. Judge Williams had already begun discussing the transitional arrangements for guardianship of the twins and management of Williams' assets. Victoria could barely contain her smile as the judge called a brief recess before issuing her ruling. "It's done," she whispered to Eleanor in the hallway. "By this afternoon, everything will be ours." What they didn't know was that James had spent the recess in urgent conversation with the district attorney and the chief judge of the New York County court system. The evidence package, delivered that morning, had initiated an immediate investigation. When the court reconvened, a new tension filled the air. William's disheveled appearance had been replaced with sharp focus. He sat straighter, his eyes clear and calculating. James approached the bench. "Your Honor, before you issue your ruling, we request permission to present evidence that has recently come to light." Judge Williams frowned. "The evidentiary phase of this hearing is closed, Mr. Peterson." "This evidence relates directly to fraud upon the court, Your Honor," James pressed, "and involves several parties to these proceedings, including yourself." A ripple of shock passed through the courtroom. Victoria's face drained of color. "That's outrageous," Victoria's attorney objected. This is clearly a desperate attempt to... The courtroom doors opened, and Chief Judge Michael Richardson entered, flanked by 2 court officers. He approached the bench and spoke quietly with Judge Williams, whose expression transformed from indignation to alarm. After a tense exchange, Judge Williams cleared her throat. In light of certain information brought to the court's attention, I am recusing myself from this matter. Chief Judge Richardson will preside over the remainder of this hearing. As Judge Williams hastily gathered her papers and fled the courtroom, Victoria turned to her attorney in panic. What's happening?
Fix this!
But it was already too late. The carefully constructed plot was unraveling faster than they could respond. Chief Judge Richardson took the bench with grave authority. This court has received evidence of potentially criminal misconduct related to these proceedings. Before we continue, I am ordering all electronic devices collected and the courtroom sealed. Court officers moved swiftly through the room, confiscating phones and tablets. Now, Mr. Peterson, the Chief Judge continued, you may present your evidence. James nodded to an assistant who wheeled in a television monitor. Your Honor, what you're about to see is the result of a private investigation conducted over the past month. The lights dimmed and the screen flickered to life. The first clip showed Victoria and Eleanor in William's library, discussing how to accelerate the timeline for having him declared incompetent. The Chambers merger can't wait, Victoria was saying. We need Will declared incapacitated by month's end. Eleanor's response was chilling. The sedatives are already working. He's showing signs of confusion, memory lapses. A few more weeks of increased dosage, and no one will question the diagnosis. With each new clip, the color drained further from Victoria and Eleanor's faces. The recordings were damning. Eleanor drugging William's drinks. Victoria discussing kickbacks with board members. Both women coaching the twins to provide damaging statements about their father. Most shocking was the footage of Eleanor forcing the twins to eat the eggs, her voice ice-cold as she demanded their obedience through tears and gagging. The courtroom sat in stunned silence as the last clip played. Judge Williams and Victoria discussing the case over lunch 3 weeks before the hearing was even filed. I'll make sure it goes smoothly, the judge had promised. Just make sure that donation to the Children's Foundation comes through before the quarter ends. When the lights came back on, Robert Chambers was already slipping toward the exit. Court officers blocked his path. Victoria stood, trembling with rage. This is manipulation. Edited footage. Will has clearly... Sit down, Ms. Blackwood, Chief Judge Richardson ordered. Mr. Peterson, do you have additional evidence to present? James nodded solemnly. We do, Your Honor. We have laboratory confirmation that Mr. Blackwood's beverages have been systematically contaminated with benzodiazepines. We have financial records showing transfers between accounts controlled by Ms. Blackwood, Ms. Sinclair, and offshore entities linked to Chambers Global. He placed a thick binder on the evidence table. And we have sworn statements from board members who were coerced into supporting this scheme. The courtroom doors opened once more. Martha entered, holding the hands of Emma and Olivia. The twins looked directly at Eleanor, their small faces showing not fear but determination. Finally, James continued, we have recordings made by Emma and Olivia Blackwood during their forced session with Dr. Fisher, recordings that demonstrate clear manipulation and witness tampering. Chief Judge Richardson reviewed the evidence with increasing gravity. This court is immediately vacating all temporary orders against William Blackwood. Further, I am issuing orders freezing the assets of Victoria Blackwood, Eleanor Sinclair, and Robert Chambers, pending criminal investigation. William stood, finally breaking his silence. Your Honor, my primary concern is for my daughter's well-being. Whatever else happens, I ask that the court prioritize their protection. The judge nodded. So of course, Mr. Blackwood, in fact... But before he could finish, Eleanor lunged toward the twins, her composure shattered. You little brats! After everything I tried to do for you. Court officers intercepted her instantly, restraining her as she continued to scream accusations and threats. Victoria, ever the strategist, attempted a different approach. Will, this is all a terrible misunderstanding. I was only trying to protect you, to ensure the girls had proper care. William's expression remained impassive. Save it for your attorney, Victoria. You'll need a good one." As the courtroom erupted into chaos, William crossed to his daughters, kneeling before them with tears in his eyes. "I'm so proud of you both," he whispered. "So incredibly proud." Emma and Olivia threw their arms around his neck, the three Blackwoods holding onto each other as the storm raged around them. Outside, news helicopters circled the courthouse, capturing the sensational scene as Victoria, Eleanor, and Chambers were escorted out in disgrace, the first public chapter in what would become known as the Blackwood Conspiracy. 3 months after the courthouse drama, the Blackwood penthouse had transformed. Gone were the oppressive silences and calculated performances. Laughter echoed through the rooms once more. William sat on the terrace, watching as Emma and Olivia played with their new golden retriever puppy, Chance. The autumn sun cast a warm glow over Central Park below, the trees a tapestry of red and gold. "More lemonade, Mr. Blackwood?" Martha asked, the loyal housekeeper now promoted to household manager, with a substantial raise and expanded responsibilities. "Thanks, Martha. And it's still just Will to you, remember?" He smiled, taking the glass. "Any word from the school?" Ms. Patterson called. "The girls are adjusting beautifully. Their art teacher is particularly impressed with Olivia's painting series." William nodded, relief washing over him. The psychological scars from Eleanor's cruelty had been a primary concern. But with regular sessions with a compassionate child psychologist and the unconditional love of their father, the twins were healing. The puppy bounded across the terrace, a tennis ball clamped in his jaws, the girls laughing as they chased him. "Dad!" "Chance won't give up the ball," Emma called, her voice light with an innocence that had been temporarily stolen but now restored. "Try offering him a trade," William suggested, joining their game. That's often the best negotiation strategy. These moments, simple, joyful, present, had become his priority. The corporate empire still stood, but its place in William's life had fundamentally shifted. Inside, James arrived for their weekly update meeting, carrying his customary file folder and a gift bag. "Uncle James!" The twins rushed to greet him, now affectionately referring to the attorney as family. "I brought books," he announced, handing each girl a package. Historical mysteries this time. As the girls excitedly unwrapped their gifts, William and James settled in the living room, their conversation turning to business and legal matters. "The board restructuring is complete," James reported. "The new ethics committee has implemented all the recommended oversight protocols." The aftermath of the Blackwood conspiracy had resulted in significant changes at Blackwood Financial. 7 board members had resigned. Robert Chambers faced multiple federal charges for corporate espionage and market manipulation. His company's stock had plummeted, and a shareholder revolt had forced his resignation. "And Victoria?" William asked quietly. James's expression softened. "The civil case is proceeding. She's agreed to preliminary settlement terms, full divestiture of her Blackwood holdings, and permanent removal from any company affiliations." William nodded, a complex mixture of emotions crossing his face. Despite everything, Victoria was still his sister. The betrayal cut deeper than any corporate rivalry ever could. "And Eleanor? The restraining order is permanent. She's relocated to Chicago, apparently working at a small gallery there." The conversation shifted to more positive developments, the educational foundation William had established, providing arts and financial literacy programs to underprivileged children throughout New York City. Half of the money recovered from the conspiracy had been directed to this initiative, with the twins serving as junior ambassadors. The Blackwood Family Trust for Children's Education has already funded programs in 27 schools, James noted. The press coverage has been universally positive. William waved away the mention of publicity. The programs are what matter, not the press. That evening, the Blackwood family hosted a small dinner party, their first since the ordeal. The guests included James and his wife, Martha and her husband, and several teachers from the twins' school. The conversation flowed easily, touching on art, literature, and plans for the upcoming holidays. After dinner, Emma approached her father with a handmade invitation. "Dad, Olivia and I want to invite you to our special presentation." The guests gathered in the twins' art room, where an elaborate display awaited. The girls had created a multimedia project titled Our Family Story. Paintings, collages, and written pieces that chronicled their journey through darkness into light. "We wanted to show that bad things can happen," Olivia explained, "but they don't have to define you forever." Emma pointed to the final piece, a large canvas showing 3 figures and a dog silhouetted against a rising sun. "This is us now, moving forward together." William struggled to contain his emotions as he embraced his daughters. "This is beautiful," he whispered. "And so are both of you, inside and out." Later that night, after the guests had departed and the twins were asleep, William stood at the window of his study, looking out at the city. On his desk lay the final paperwork for his most significant decision yet, stepping back from day-to-day operations at Blackwood Financial to become executive chairman. The newly appointed CEO, a brilliant woman who had been William's protégé for a decade, had promised to maintain the company's integrity while bringing fresh vision. The transition would allow William to be home by 5 each evening and take weekends off, time dedicated solely to his daughters. His phone chimed with a calendar alert. "Emma's recital, do not miss," he smiled, adding 3 exclamation points to the reminder. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Martha entered with a cup of tea. "The girls wanted to make sure you got this before bed," she said, placing the cup on his desk. "They read that chamomile helps with sleep." William accepted it gratefully. "They take care of me as much as I take care of them." Martha nodded, her eyes reflecting decades of loyal service and genuine affection. "That's what family does, Mr. Blackwood." "Yes," he agreed. "That's what real family does." The following morning, the New York Times business section featured a profile of William Blackwood, focusing not on the scandal, but on the corporate reforms and philanthropic initiatives that had emerged from it. The final paragraph quoted him directly. "An empire built at the expense of your home is no empire worth having," Blackwood stated. "I learned that my most valuable assets aren't listed on any balance sheet. They're waiting for me at the breakfast table each morning." In the Blackwood penthouse, that breakfast table was indeed full, with pancakes shaped like puppy faces, William's increasingly skilled attempt, fresh fruit arranged by color, Emma's artistic touch, and a centerpiece of fall flowers, Olivia's contribution. Chance sat hopefully nearby, his tail thumping against the floor. "Dad, can we go to the shelter this weekend?" Olivia asked, passing the syrup. "They need volunteer dog walkers." "And then maybe the botanical garden?" Emma added. "I need inspiration for my science project." William set down his coffee cup. "Yes to both. And how about we try that new pizza place in Brooklyn for lunch? I heard they make the crust with honey." The twins exchanged surprised glances. "But don't you have that big meeting with the Japanese investors?" Emma asked. William shook his head, smiling. "I've rescheduled. Some things are more important." As sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the 3 Blackwoods and their puppy, William realized that his promise from nearly 4 months ago had finally been fulfilled. He was home, truly home, in every way that mattered. Outside, Manhattan continued its relentless pace. Deals were made, fortunes won and lost, empires built and dismantled. But within the walls of the penthouse, something far more precious had been constructed. A family rebuilt on foundations of trust, honesty and unwavering love. The Blackwood legacy, William now understood, would not be measured in buildings bearing their name or the billions in their accounts. It would live in moments like this, pancakes and plans, laughter and light, the quiet triumph of a family that had faced darkness and emerged stronger together.